Welcome to another playoff edition of the Varsity Voices, Chicago Catholic League Sports Talk. I'm Joe Frevaletti, and here with me is my co-host, Dan Frevaletti. And today we're breaking down an unforgettable weekend of second-round action in the IHSA football playoffs, where the Chicago Catholic League once again proved it belongs among the state's elite. These games had everything: grit, big plays, and playoff pressure at its finest. We'll recap the highlights, the heroes, and the turning points that defined each game and showed why the Chicago Catholic League is the premier football conference in the state. So settle in, because this is your second round playoff rewind, the Varsity Voices style. Dan, we talked about in our predictions episode, our prognosticus episode, that we thought the field was going to get whittled down a bit. And it did for the Chicago Catholic League teams.
Right.
But maybe not the teams that I thought were going to get whittled down. Right.
Yeah.
Some interesting ones. Now, not as many either.
Right.
That I thought were going to get whittled down. So
very close to only having one that got
yes,
bumped, and
I know.
That was one we predicted in St. Pat's, and but yeah, that Carmel at St. Charles North game came down to the wire. So
it did. Came down to the wire. There were a couple close games.
Field goal.
Rita.
Yeah.
They won a last-minute field goal, right?
Yes. Last
so
second. And game ending.
Last
like in the
second
NFL.
field goal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a really good weekend for football. And what I didn't think would be as big of a factor as it kind of turned out to be for some of the teams was the weather. So everybody was talking about the weather. And for me, when I think about football, high school football, college football, professional football, I'm like, weather, big deal. But it turned out to be a factor, right? Don't you think it did?
Oh, yeah. I think, again, mentioning that game, Carmel and St. Charles North, I think it was a huge factor in how teams responded to it. That's kind of where I fall on that.
Right.
I think, I think it was definitely a factor in that game.
Yeah, and I also thought about, because I think it was a factor in that game too, because I watched a fair amount of that game, but it made me think about the regular season for the Chicago Catholic League, and really for everybody. There really was not a bad weather week.
No, it was perfect.
It was perfect all regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't rain, there wasn't mud, there wasn't whatever. So when it gets down to it, and then you get into a game like this, it's like, we haven't experienced it, and let's see how our players do, or how our team does. And I don't know, some responded, some didn't.
Yeah, and the weather change where it gets cold like this, that first snap, it takes a bit to get used to. Are you used to it?
I'm never used to it. I'm never, ever used to it. Yeah. And I'm trying to think back 40 years when I was playing football, and if I was used to it then, and I hated it then too. So
I hated it too. Some guys love the rain games and everything else. Nope. Give me a nice day.
Yeah. Or I'm like, put a dome over every stadium there is.
Right.
High school, college, NFL. I want to see teams play in nice weather.
Yeah. No, there's something to be said for that, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So we've got our recap, Dan, and it was a good week of football. It was a good week of football for Chicago Catholic League. Like we said, some teams bowed out here that maybe we didn't expect. But I know you covered or watched the IC game, right?
Yeah.
So let's start there in 3A. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, Joe, I love it when we choose a dog of the week at some point in the season, and then they continue to perform like dogs, and show up game after game after game. Tamarian Garner for IC is his ability to make big plays for the rush end position is just a weapon for IC, and he is a dog's dog. He started the scoring, Joe, in this game to give with a scoop and score on a fumble to give IC an early 7-0 lead. IC ended up winning this game 37-27. So when we did the prognosticus episode, I said it would look like a CCL game with the talent on the field, and it really did.
Yeah.
Bishop Mack tied the game with a Julius May touchdown, and they looked every bit the part of a CCL team. The biggest problem that they had, and this maybe is a theme, and maybe this is a weather thing, were turnovers.
Yeah.
And they and defending Nate Lang touchdown passes. He had 3 touchdown passes. We've got AUMT, all under mention team.
Yeah.
KC Kekstad, leading IC with 110 rushing yards.
Yep. I don't remember mentioning his name at all this year, Dan,
Okay,
which
I thought
is that our fault or I'm not sure.
probably.
All right. Blame it on us.
We'll
But
take it. We'll
anyways,
take
yeah,
it.
we
Yeah,
will take it. Yeah.
yeah. And Grant Bowen looked unstoppable. 97 yards receiving. Every time I see him, he looks like an NFL tight end. Jimmy
Yeah.
Graham is who he reminds me of.
Really?
The guy who
All
played
right.
in the league. Yeah, just outstanding, unstoppable. But IC wins this game 37-27 over Bishop McNamara. They play number 2 Byron next week, which will be a great, entertaining, interesting game.
If you are looking to buy or sell a home, contact RE/MAX Realtor and Circle of Legends recipient Christopher Cobb. Let Chris's extensive negotiating experience work to guide you on all of your real estate buying and selling needs. Contact Christopher now to discuss the right strategy for your personalized real estate buying and selling plan. His number is 630-420-0070, or you can visit his website at christophercobb.com.
Will be an interesting game, and we'll preview that and predict it later on, Dan. And
Yeah.
actually, should we tell people what we're going to do next week for our prognosticus episode?
Yes.
We're going live.
Yep.
Everybody, we're going live on Saturday morning. All the games will be on Saturday for the quarterfinals, and then through the rest of the semifinals and finals. And we're going to go live Saturday morning. And we are going to do our predictions or prognosticus episode that way this week. So we'll give you the up-to-date information live. You can catch it here on X. You can catch it on Spotify or on YouTube, on TikTok. We'll be on Facebook. We'll be on all the different avenues for getting your information, whether it's podcasts or social media. We'll be live. Right. So
yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We haven't done much live this year.
No,
we
haven't.
We've done nearly not live, next to live
next
light.
to live, live light,
undead.
Yeah,
yeah,
undead.
Yes,
yeah,
but not quite live. So this will be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I watch the college pregame shows. Sometimes they're a little much, and they get a little hokey. So I thought, boy, this would be good to give some straight talk on Saturday morning. Give people an alternative. High school football's so awesome at this time of year. So join us for our prognosticus preview episode Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's way more interesting than college football at this point in their season and NFL football at this point in their season.
For sure.
Right? For
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so let's go to 4A. I was watching the Montini versus Notre Dame Peoria game, Dan, and coming into the game, obviously we know Montini was undefeated, 10-0, or 9-0, riding strong and confident. Peoria and Notre Dame came in at 8-1.
8-2. So
8-2. Yeah, 10-0 and 8-2.
Counting their first. Yep.
Yeah. But Montini, they established their dominance right away, early in the game. They forced Notre Dame to play from behind. By the end of the first quarter, Montini had already built a 14-3 lead. The Broncos defense made some early stops, and offense converted when they really had to. And Notre Dame just could not respond. Montini was up 27-3 by halftime. One of the things I noticed in this game, Dan, which, normally I wouldn't, because I don't think the broadcasters are really part of, anything I do in review of the game or
Yeah.
watching the game.
Yeah.
But the broadcasters were from Notre Dame, and they were very good for one.
Mm-hmm.
But the other was, I felt like they gave up the game within the first quarter. Now Montini obviously was doing very well, but they were talking about how outmatched they were, how how much bigger Montini was, how much more physical, how much more athletic they were. I just found that really very interesting that they were kind of harping on that, and they did it throughout the whole game.
Really, and it's I mean, it's Peoria. It's not the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
they had a very good season. I mean,
yeah.
they were, like you said, or like we said, they were 8-2 coming into this game. And what they did like to do, which Montini completely took them out of their game, was, I mean, they were not a throwing team at all. They
Yeah.
like to run the ball. I think they averaged over 300 yards total offense, in most of their games this year. But they just could not match up with Montini in this game at all. And Montini kind of showed their talent, their dominance. Obviously Montini's 10-0, right? So it's not that it's a surprise to anybody,
Right.
where Montini is at. But, the final score here was Montini 47, Notre Dame 17. And Montini now moves on to the quarterfinals and will take on the number 5 seed, Coal City, who beat Dixon High School, a good team, 49
Yeah.
to 42 in a
Oh wow.
high scoring game. So,
High scoring.
uh,
Yep.
yep, that'll be a good game next week.
All right. Yeah, that's I'm looking forward to that. Coal City played DePaul Prep on their March last year.
They
They are
did.
we'll see if they fare any better this year.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So who do you got next, Dan?
I'm going with St. Francis over Prairie Ridge, 41-38. One of the better games I watched and followed yesterday. Joe, turnover is pretty critical all day in the games that I followed. I didn't say it's a weather thing for sure, but there were a lot of turnovers. And I'm wondering if the choice to plan on that day versus playing Friday will have some coaches kicking themselves. We'll see,
Maybe.
but
Yeah.
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 Peyton Shipley recovered a fumble on a fourth down play, and Brock Phillip ran it in for a score a few plays later, which seemed to really spark St. Francis. And even though I thought St. Francis was in trouble after Prairie Ridge recovered an onside kick in the fourth quarter, and it looked like they could drive. They had driven the entire game. Luke Vanderweel, and I don't know if I'm saying that properly, is a jet with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
He is outstanding. But St. Francis was able to get Prairie Ridge to turn it over on downs on that possession, and that kind of sealed the game. Brock Phillip was also outstanding. They both rushed for over 170 yards. Brock Phillip also threw for 150, 2 touchdowns. And while the defense had trouble stopping Prairie Ridge's option attack all game, they made plays when it mattered.
Mm-hmm.
They really showed up when it mattered. That was a difference in the football game. St. Francis on both sides of the ball made plays when it mattered. They really earned this victory. I don't know that either one of us picked them to win this.
I don't think we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And,
shame on us, but it was a great ball game, and St. Francis moves on to play King out of the Chicago Public League next week in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. So one of the things, Dan, which I will say regarding this, and maybe it redeems us a little bit, is we said in this game that it might come down to a special teams play, might come down to a turnover, right?
Yeah.
And as I was watching a little bit of this game, it was back and forth.
Yeah.
Um, Prairie Ridge on offense, march the ball down, score. St. Francis, they score in 3 plays. Prairie Ridge, march the ball down and score. St. Francis scores on 3 or 4 plays. And then there was one series where St. Francis was able to force a fumble on Prairie Ridge's quarterback and get the ball at about midfield and go down and score. Right. And that was the difference in this game for sure, because neither defense could stop the other offense.
No, it was one of those games where it seemed like whoever had the ball last would
Yes,
win. Yeah,
for sure.
there was
Yep.
a couple of those plays that St. Francis stopped. I thought there was no way St. Francis was stopping Prairie Ridge after they recovered the onside kick in the fourth quarter. Would have
Yeah.
given Prairie Ridge a lead and St. Francis maybe just a little bit of time. So, but yeah, so really entertaining game between two really good teams. A huge win for St. Francis.
Yeah. Good win. All right. I'm looking forward to next week with them.
Yeah.
All right. So the next game I have here, Dan, is St. Patrick versus Cary Grove. So St. Patrick, I think we probably mentioned this. They entered this game probably as the underdog.
Sure.
Cary Grove coming in with 9-2 record, and really a good team, good rushing team this year. And from the opening whistle, Cary Grove kind of made a statement here. In the very first defensive series, their defensive back Jason Ritter picked off a St. Patrick pass near midfield, and turnover immediately they turned into a touchdown. By their quarterback Jackson Burnt, who is really, really a good player.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Guy who can run, guy who can throw. Obviously, they like to run more than throw. But, by the end of the first quarter, Cary Grove had built up a 27-0 lead, and full of big plays. Right? They weren't grinding the ball out. They were kind of ripping off big chunks against St. Pat's here in this game. So, I think they had 7 runs of 40 yards or more, Cary Grove, in this game. So
Wow.
St. Pat's just did not have an answer for this. And, you and I were wondering in our prognosticus episode how much the strength of schedule for St. Pat's would play into this game, knowing how good Cary Grove is or has been throughout the year. And it really didn't matter all that much. I think the score at halftime here, Dan, was 48-0 in favor of Cary Grove. So they really kind of dominated St. Pat's, and St. Pat's didn't have an answer. But so the final score here was St. Pat's did get a couple scores, but it's kind of in garbage time at the end of the game. So Cary Grove wins 55-21 over St. Pat's. But before we move on, Dan, I do want to say how, congratulate St. Pat's on their season
Oh,
this
what a
year.
year. What a year.
What a year for them, right? Considering where they were at last year and the year before. Coach Zibikowski comes in, kind of turns this around and really puts it in the right direction immediately, right?
Yeah.
In 1 year.
Second round of the playoffs. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really real. And Purple Division champion.
Yes.
So all good things, and the arrow is pointing way up for St. Pat's.
Way up, trending way up. So excellent season. Congrats to them, and congrats to Cary Grove, obviously, too.
Joe, if Cary Grove can play great defense like this, they're a handful.
They are a handful, and they've got to be. I mean, based on what I saw, they've got to be one of the favorites, for the state championship. So, okay, all right, let's move on, Dan. Who do you got?
All right, Providence over Kankakee. God, I didn't write down the final. Unbelievable.
No, it's not. It's not unbelievable. I can fully believe it.
It fits because Kankakee just needed me to turn off this game, Joe, in order to change their luck. I turned it off when Providence went up 21-3, and they were dominating. Huge chunk plays, and I thought, well, they're on their way to a running clock.
Yeah.
Broden Mackert was running his way through huge holes, 3 touchdowns in the first half. There was a Cedric Terrell for Kankakee. He had a kickoff return that kind of sparked the K's. And within the first half, they came back to make it, I think it was 28-25 at half. It may have ended up 35-25. Might have been the final there. But turnovers, again, played a factor. Anthony Iaquinta had 2 picks for Providence. They forced a few other turnovers. Dom Vita had a great day, finishing 10 of 14 for 145 and a touchdown. Providence moves to the quarterfinals and sees number 1 seed Washington, who does have a victory against a CCL team. this year.
Really?
And
Which one?
yeah, Notre Dame, week 1.
Oh,
So
okay.
tight
Yeah,
game,
I
15.
remember that.
Oh no, they have a loss. Excuse me, a loss to Notre Dame in week 1. It was 14-13, I think, was the final. Notre Dame
Okay.
came back. It was like
Yeah.
just crazy comeback win for Notre Dame, but it's Washington's only loss, Joe. So Providence still has that awesome running game. Their defense has picked it up a click because Kankakee could really run.
Yeah.
But Joe, one thing I wanted to point out, and this was the first time in a few games that I saw this. I'll probably mention it again, but size difference between Providence and Kankakee, just physically,
Yeah.
it was kind of eye catching, and like, whoa, they are much bigger. And Kankakee has outstanding speed, and everyone says, speed, speed, speed. But boy, there's a place for size in this game still.
There
It's for
is.
sure, and
There
strength,
is.
no
Yeah.
doubt about it.
And,
Yeah.
I think you and I become somewhat not immune to it, but we see it as very kind of matter of fact because we primarily cover the Chicago Catholic League, right,
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
course of the season. And we just see one big ass after the next, right?
Right.
And
Right.
big legs,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
it's like, hey, that's just the way it is. But then when you see the Chicago Catholic League teams going up against some of these other teams, like these guys are big and
Yes.
physical and
Across the board.
across the board.
Yeah, it's not
Yes.
just one guy here or there. Some of these teams
No.
have a couple big guys for sure, but
Yeah.
yeah, just the across the board size difference and physicality is it's noticeable.
It's very noticeable,
Yeah.
especially if you're watching very closely, right? I mean,
Yes.
people who are not casual fans, but just fans of football and the Chicago Catholic League, they know about the Chicago Catholic League. I don't think they realize the difference in the physical size and stature of
Yes.
some of the players. So,
Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on, Dan. And I'm going to go to the Nazareth versus Wheaton Warrenville South game. So the second round matchup, Class 6A. And the final score here was Nazareth beat Wheaton Warrenville South 28-7, which to me was a bit of a surprise as far as the score. I I, I wouldn't have picked this score. If somebody would have said, tell me what the score is going to be, I would have said, 35-31 or
Right.
something,
Right.
along
Yeah.
those lines. But, the first half was defensive dominated. Neither team scored in the first quarter.
Right.
And Wheaton Warrenville South led 7-0 at halftime. Which, their really good running back, Owen York, rushed in just at the end of the first half, and they go up 7-0. But then in the third quarter, I don't know. I was seeing when I was looking at this, I thought, what was the Nazareth locker room like with Coach Racky at halftime,
Yeah.
going in
Probably
7-0?
probably not pretty.
Not pretty at all.
Probably had to soundproof those walls. Yeah.
Yes. So in the third quarter, Nazareth came out and they completely kind of flipped the script. They scored 14 points in the third quarter, 14 points in the fourth quarter. Um, and I do think the weather was a
Yeah.
factor in this game.
First half was pretty nasty in that game.
Yes, very
Yeah.
nasty. And, Nazareth, I give them credit for how they kind of maybe adjusted their game plan at halftime. Maybe that was part of the very gentle conversation Coach Racky had with them at halftime.
Right.
But they their running back Charles Calhoun rushed for over 150 yards, I think, in the second half alone,
Oh
with
man.
3 touchdowns. So
Yeah.
just incredible. And then their
Yeah.
defense shut down Wheaton Warrenville South the rest of the game. Something that Wheaton Warrenville South was not used to all year. I mean, they had really good offense, over 250, 300 yards total offense in each of their games this year and all their wins. But in 20, just under 28 points per game this year as well. And Nas just shut them down in the second half. So a really good win for Nazareth here. Maybe a good test for them too, considering what's going to happen over the next several weeks,
Yeah.
from a weather standpoint. So, I give him a lot of credit for making the right adjustments and coming out and kind of taking care of business after halftime against Wheat Moorville South. So they face off now against the number 4 seed, Lake Zurich, who really is kind of cruised through the first 2 rounds, Dan. So this is going to be a really good game, and we'll talk about it more, in our live episode Saturday morning. But Lake Zurich, the first 2 rounds, they beat Grant 46-13, and then they beat Antioch 35-0. This past week, so they're on a roll, and
Yeah, they're a good team.
probably be a test for Nass, but we'll see how that goes.
All right, Joe. So moving over to Fenwick. Fenwick beats Rolling Meadows in on Saturday. Jamin Williams was his efficient self. He goes 11 for 15, 219 yards. Fenwick dominated this one. They were up 31-0 at half. Jake Thies had 150 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns, I think all in the first half. Mike Murphy was a menace on defense. And I think it was a running clock, Joe, in the third quarter. So, and Joe, it takes me back to our theme, or at least my theme from watching. It looked like they were physically bigger, thicker than their opponent. And so I've got to give kudos to all these schools' weight programs, because they just this game, the way Jake Thies ran through people too. I mean, he's running through linebackers, and
through tackles,
tackles.
Yes.
That they didn't have the strength to even slow him down a little bit. It looked like at times,
right?
But so I mean, that's a credit to Jake Thies, and he's great even within the Catholic League. But just something about it looked different. So yeah, I think they go on to, I think it was 40-0. Maybe or 43-0 was the final, but they were definitely one of the more physical teams. Fenwick goes on to play I think it's a 2 seed, Burlington Central.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. They've had a great season. We'll see if the curse of the CCL comes back to bite them. But
generational season, Dan.
I don't know if they might have a really good program. So maybe not quite generational.
Just checking.
Yeah. But
okay.
Interesting game next week. But Fenwick takes care of Rolling Meadows 43-0.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to St. Lawrence versus Bradley Bourbonnais. And this second round matchup, 6A game. St. Lawrence wins this game, Dan, 35-21 over Bradley Bourbonnais. I can't remember who we picked in this game, Dan. I think we both picked St. Lawrence, but we were a little concerned, about Bradley Bourbonnais and the amount of talent they have. And they came in with a 9-2 record. And I think they were fully expecting that they were going to win this game and move on. But talk about the physicality and the size difference in watching some of this game. St. Lawrence just, outsized Bradley Bourbonnais by a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
I did watch some of this. Their defensive line looked like they were youth players next to St. Pat's O-line.
They did, and I think St. Lawrence did exactly.
St. Lawrence, excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, St. Lawrence. Yeah. St. Lawrence did exactly the right thing here, and they don't miss that. The coaches don't miss that either, right? They see that when they go out on the field and say, "Okay, what are we going to do? We are going to rush the ball. We are going to run the ball, and we are going to rely on our big guys up front on offense, and we're going to stop them on defense. Yeah, we'll give up maybe a big play or two to Bradley Bourbonnais' athletes, which they had a lot of them out there on the field, really good, really talented players. But they just could not hang with St. Lawrence for 4 quarters and the size and physicality. I mean, Corey Less, one of our favorites, right? Rushed for over 180 yards in this game. I think 3 touchdowns. The defense showed up as well. Matt Williams had a big pick 6 in this for St. Lawrence. Sean Rice, He scored a 25-yard touchdown. He also had an interception on defense. So Sean Rice was all over the field in all aspects of the game. And I feel like St. Lawrence is just kind of gelling at exactly the right point for them. And obviously it's evident, right? Because they're going to the quarterfinals here. And I'm not sure how many people would have picked them to go to the quarterfinals this year, but they are playing really well. And, they've got everything clicking for them, and especially their stars are playing well. And that's always really good when you get to the playoffs. So they're going to take on a number 6 seed in the quarterfinals, and that's Dunlap, who I know nothing about, Dan. I just know that they've won their first 2 games, and I will find out more about them, as we get to our prognosticus predictions episode coming up live this Saturday.
You want a little fact about Dunlap?
I do.
Their superstar player, his name is Max Sutter.
Okay.
Does that name ring a bell?
Mac Sutter. No.
So his father is Ed Sutter, who played with me at Northwestern.
Yes. Yeah. Now it does.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So and Ed played in the NFL, was a great player, all Big Ten guy.
Yeah.
So he's got super athletic kids, and I think Max Sutter is one of the better players in the state. And I think it's Dunlap. I'm almost certain.
Where is Dunlap?
I think near Peoria. I think.
Okay.
Because I think they still live there, but not 100% sure. Shocker.
But we will find out.
He is there. He is Dunlap tight end. We'll find out where that is, and
that is, what they're about, and why they're so good so far.
Yeah, Max Sutter is one of the reasons. That's for sure.
Okay. All right. Good.
Joe, one thing I wanted to say, real finishing up on St. Lawrence, Corey Les was like Jake Thies, just running through people.
Yes. And in addition to that, because I saw Jake Thies running through people, through tackles.
Yeah.
The thing that I saw with Corey Les is he was running through people, through tackles, but people were also bouncing off of him.
Yeah.
His thighs, talk about size and physicality. Corey Les is one of those guys. Yeah. And Bradley, the players from Bradley Bourbonnais would come up and try and tackle him. They would just bounce off. It's like the superpower I want to have.
Yeah. What is that?
People just bounce off me. Right. Yeah. He's got it.
Yes,
He's got it. Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can go see his origin story and mimic it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're going to continue on this theme,
okay.
Joe.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to talk about St. Rita over Lincoln Way Central, 31-28. I don't know if I didn't have a great, feed of St. Rita during the year, but they were like as thick as any team I've seen. They have spent some serious time.
There's
the squat rack.
There's a theme to this episode, isn't there?
It's like, good grief. Yeah. They are just huge up front. And every guy, like I said, looks like he lives under a squat rack. So
right.
And Joe, they had a guy who we've talked about a lot last year, not a ton about this year. Walter Jones was huge in this game.
Yeah.
Kickoff.
He was hurt. He was hurt.
I know he missed a game
4
or 2,
games.
But he had a great game. Huge catch to set up kicker Saul Ruiz, and it was a 23-yard game winner. So this game was tied 28-28. And St. Rita got a great game from Brandon Johnson for over 100 yards he rushed for, but they needed it to counter the awesome Lucas Andreessen, who, along with Drew Woodburn, the Lincoln Way Central quarterback, accounted for 4 touchdowns. Just really, really great game. 2 really good schools. Lincoln Way Central is a very good team, and I thought they looked like a state title contender when they beat Providence in week 2. Yeah. This is a great win for St. Rita. You talked about teams coming together at the right time. Rita looks like they are. They look
Yeah,
like
they do.
they've got a solid running game, and if Walter Jones is now 100%, they make it that much more dangerous. We've already talked about how good Armbruster is, week in and week out. But they play Hersey, and Hersey has won 9 straight.
Yeah,
That
really tough, tough
they
draw.
are tough,
Yep.
tough. Another tough week. So good win for St. Rita. One of the more exciting games. Like I said, you don't see a ton of game-winning, game-ending field goals, but that's what St. Rita did to knock off Lincoln Way Central.
Yeah. Yeah, and I watched that last kick, the field goal to win the
Yeah,
game, and I actually watched a little bit more than that. Watched that last drive by St. Rita, and they were calm. They moved the ball down the field to get themselves into field goal position. I really liked that about them. As far as knowing that they needed that to win that game, and they weren't frantic or anything like that.
yeah,
And I credit Armbruster for that.
yeah.
And
That's experience right
it's
there. You're right.
experience right
Yeah.
there, and he got him. He got him to the point they needed to get to in order to win that game. So really nice win for St. Rita. All right, so the next game, Dan, is the Carmel versus St. Charles North game, and this St. Charles North, we knew they were good, right? And they entered this game with, I think they were 9-1, 9-1 record. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and Carmel was 8-2, but since we follow Carmel a lot more than we do St. Charles North, we've seen what Carmel could do, and especially on offense and scoring points. And we thought this was going to be a barn burner. It wasn't necessarily a barn burner, Dan. The North Stars, or St. Charles North, pulled off a win 26-23 over Carmel in this game. And out of all the games that I watched, I think this was the one which was most affected by the weather than any of the other games. And I think Carmel was affected by the weather more than St. Charles North was.
I
Because,
totally agree.
yeah, and Carmel just could never get on track. Now, they did rush the ball really well. I think they had 2 backs over
Yeah.
100 yards. And but they had trouble scoring points. And even though they took the lead, I think they were up 16-7 at halftime. But St. Charles North, they made the right adjustments. They kept Trey Taylor in the pocket, right, rather than let him move around too much.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out very well for Carmel. It just seemed like they were more affected by the weather than St. Charles North was. I felt like St. Charles North was very disciplined. They executed their game plan very well. They were aggressive in forcing Carmel into mistakes, right? And I just feel like Carmel never got on track in this game, Dan. And St. Charles, like I said, ends up St. Charles North ends up winning this game 26-23. A really good season for Carmel, considering last year they didn't even get into the playoffs. I thought they were going to go a little bit further than this, but just didn't happen. So, yeah. All right. So one more thing, Dan, on the Carmel versus St. Charles North game, and I just wanted to mention this, is that we know the type of talent that Carmel has, and the future is really bright for them still.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I see them getting back here, at this point, maybe further next year. I mean, we know Trey Taylor will be back, their quarterback, who had an outstanding season. In this game, they had 2 sophomore running backs run for over 100 yards, and Jacal Edmonds and Jordan Moore, both sophomores, running backs. So the cupboard is not bare for Carmel. They've got a ton of talent, and they'll be back.
And I was thinking about Trey Taylor's interview on with us before the season started, which
Yeah.
feels like yesterday, kind of. But we know how focused he is. That's on his to-do list, is to, I don't know, get to a state championship. I would
Yeah.
imagine he is irritated uh, today after some a game that was kind of a little sloppy, and we can say weather or whatever, but both teams were in it. So
Yeah.
so anyway, probably not how they. No one ever wants to go out. No way is a good way to go out.
Right.
But they are definitely going to be back because they're loaded, and he's a superstar.
Right. All right.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of superstars, Joe, Brother Rice.
Me. Me?
Yes, not you. Yeah, you.
Not me. All right.
You were a
Okay.
superstar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Brother Rice continues to roll, led by Jalen Green, and they dominated Jacobs 46-0. And Rice was up 32-0 at half. Jalen Green had 179 yards and 3 scores. Brother Rice overcame the weather and leaned on their offensive line, used a heavy dose of Ethan Posey and George Brasado to kind of lead the way for Brother Rice and their running game. And, I was looking forward to Brother Rice Carmel in the quarterfinals.
Right.
However, I will say this St. Charles North team, while they have a very good program and have been good for a long time, feels a little kind of generational to me. So
Okay.
Brother Rice is that would be an amazing story for St. Charles North, but Brother Rice is so good and so talented.
Yeah.
There might have to be some weather to slow them down. And, it didn't this week, and Jacobs is a big program. So Brother Rice rolls 46-0 and kind of cruises into the quarterfinals.
All right. So the last game I have here, Dan, is Mount Carmel versus Belleville East. And the final score on this was Mount Carmel 48, Belleville East 29. And I guess the one surprise here for me, anyways, was that Belleville East was able to put up some points against what we know is a really good Mount Carmel defense.
Sure.
And you could see why if you watch some of this game. Belleville East has some really talented players at the key positions on offense that you need. They were able to kind of hang for the first quarter and a half, 2 quarters, but then Mount Carmel really kind of exerted their influence over the rest of the game. Emmett Dowling had an outstanding game. I think he threw for 3 touchdowns. Got to Marshawn Thornton, got Quentin Burrell, and I'm trying to think of the other receiver that got in on this, but he hit all his stars at the wide receiver position. Their running back, Nathan Samuels, had a good game. Had a 30-yard rushing TD and another 4-yard touchdown, running touchdown. So by halftime, it was 34-7. Mount Carmel in this game. I give Belleville East some credit. They came out in the second half and they relied on their offense a bit and were able to move the ball somewhat on Mount Carmel and score some points. But Mount Carmel shows why they're the favorite, right, in 8A in the state of Illinois. They just have the stars up and down the field on both sides of the ball, as we have talked about just all year. So congrats to Belleville East for a really good season this year. And, some of those guys I mentioned in Belleville East are underclassmen, so they're going to be back as well. And they've got a good and growing program going there. So the next game, Mount Carmel, and this might be the game of the week of the quarterfinals, is they are going to take on Lincoln Way East, who, by the way, is a number 9 seed in 8A.
Yeah.
People are ranking them in the top 2 or 3 in the state of Illinois, and they're a number 9 seed.
Yeah, well, they've lost 2 games, and you go by the numbers, and the numbers say this,
Yeah.
and the numbers say
It's
that, and
ridiculous.
that's why they need the Varsity Voices on the IHSA seating committee.
Yeah, but in this case, it's going to hurt them because they now have to play Mount Carmel
Yeah,
in the
you're right.
quarterfinals,
You're
right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
anyways, okay,
yeah.
all right.
Big game of the week, and Joe, that's your last game, right? That you
That is my
covered.
last game. Do you have any more? Are you good?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to mention one thing that we
Yeah.
haven't talked about. The we've been so caught up in the playoffs. There's been a coaching change already in the Catholic League.
Oh, all right.
And good friend of yours and mine, Pat New,
Right.
Bennett Academy, my
Yeah.
lifelong friend, and I coached with Pat, played with Pat at Bennett and Northwestern. Pat's coached for I think 17 years at let's see,
Jeez, has it
16
been
or
that long?
17 years. Yeah, it's been that long.
Yeah.
I started in
Huh.
first year, I think was 2010, I think. But yeah, 3-time state semifinalist. They had Bennett was in a rough spot when he came on board, and he turned it around in a few years and did an outstanding job. A lot of great players that have come through in there and played for Pat, and so I want to wish him well in his retirement. He's earned it, and just wanted to make sure that we gave him a shout out on the Varsity Voices. So congrats to Pat New at Bennett on his retirement.
Congrats to Pat, and he deserves a shout out. He's had, an outstanding career. Going back to his playing days, right?
Right. Yes, he was awesome. So
He
back
was
in the day,
unbelievable.
people may or may not, the people our age will remember, Pat was a Kodak All-American,
Yes,
which was a huge deal
a
back in
big
the
deal.
day. And he
Yes.
wasn't he? He was something on the football
He was
field, wasn't he?
electric.
Yeah.
I save that word for very few players over the
Yeah.
course because electric means something to me. And
Yeah.
I remember coming back and watching your guys senior season and watching you play and Pat play and the other teams or the other players on those teams, and Pat was electric. He was worth the price of admission. I might have paid twice the amount of money they wanted for my ticket to get in to watch him play. So yeah, he was outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and an excellent coach as well.
Had a great energy as a coach too. He
Yeah.
certainly had the players. A lot of players would say they'd run through a wall for Pat. So
yeah. All right. Outstanding. Well, we wish Pat the best of luck going forward in whatever he does. And it'll be interesting to see who comes in to coach the Bennett Academy Red Wings.
yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this week's playoff recap on the Varsity Voices Media Network. As we head into the quarterfinals, the storylines only get bigger, the competition tighter, and the spotlight brighter on these Chicago Catholic League programs that continue to set the bar for high school football in Illinois. A big shout out to all the players, coaches, and fans who make these matchups so special, and to our listeners who keep tuning in, sharing, and supporting what we do here every week. Be sure to follow us on X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and of course, we provide you with extended coverage, exclusive interviews, post-season analysis, and like we mentioned earlier, we've got a live show coming up this Saturday with our Prognosticus episode, so make sure to tune in for that. I'm Joe Fervaletti here with Dan Fervaletti, and thanks for listening to the Varsity Voices. We'll see you next time under the Friday Night Lights.